We are recording. So I will read this recording notice. This hybrid event is set up to have sessions recorded. The election of an attendee to speak up in person or use a personal microphone and or camera during a panel session constitutes a release and waiver of rights for that session and the capture of the attendee's image, likeness, and or voice for the exclusive use of the climate-ready Columbia organizing event. The person attendees should be aware that the ambient boom sounds will be picked up by the green microphones and will be heard by all virtual attendees and in the recording. Please remain quiet unless addressing the entire group. For anyone wishing not to be recorded, you may withdraw from the session before recording begins and watch the session at a later date.
Forever hold your peace.
Thanks.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope can everybody hear me all right? I'm not usually very soft spoken, so that shouldn't be a problem. I am delighted, we are delighted to be here with you this afternoon to share how your state energy office is playing a vital role in helping South Carolina achieve its energy efficiency, or EE, energy efficiency potential. My name is Sara Bazemore, and I am the director of the state energy office. And to start off with, before we got into most of the stuff, I was going to give you a little bit of background. Do I have to stand up over there? I wonder. That would be He's an engineer. All right. Let's see now. There we go. All right, about the energy office. There we go. All right, we are a small but mighty force that is in the process of growing. So we're excited about that. So you've got the majority of the energy office here with you today, representing. That's how important this is. So just a little bit about our structure. We are a state agency, and we are housed within a larger state agency called the Office of Regulatory Staff, or ORS. However, we are unique in that we are federally funded. So our funding comes from the U.S. Department of Energy, not from the state. They have several funding sources through their state energy program. And there's actually an energy office in every one of the states and territories in the United States, as well as DC. And we get to work through that national network. And it's a great collaboration between the different states. One other funding source is through the DOE Clean Cities program, and that's our Palmetto Clean Fuels Coalition. So I mentioned that we're in the Office of Regulatory Staff. How many of you are familiar with ORS? And it's not, if you're not, it's fine. Because they're a silent but mighty force as well, and they do important work. We do important work. A lot of what ORS does is stands as the ratepayer advocate in a sense for utilities when they come in front of the Public Service Commission to raise utility rates. When they put forth their plans, ORS has teams of auditors and analysts and really look through those plans because they are so complex, and so confusing, and go through them, and it would be difficult for the layperson to understand unless you were in that world. And so they have dedicated trained staff that can look through it and kind of analyze and say, utility, I don't know if you really need to raise the rates that much. And they're the advocate in front of the Public Service Commission on our behalf. So important work, as well as all the new broadband that's going on in the state and funding for that. That's through the Office of Regulatory Staff, and then us as the Little Energy Office. So what do? Our mission is to promote energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation. And like I mentioned, the Palmetto Clean Fuels is a part of that clean transportation initiative. Through our energy office activities, we have funding programs, we have training and education, and we also are the data resource for the state. So we, or I actually got ahead of myself. We provide funding support, technical assistance and training, and we serve as an informational resource. You'll see this slide again, but we have some trainings coming. So here's a shameless plug for them, because there are going to be some great opportunities. The propane school bus probably won't be for you, but that's one of our examples of working with workforce and helping and partnering to train the drivers and the operators for the new propane school buses that are coming to South Carolina. But the solar clean energy course and the boiler efficiency institute HVAC might be something. And then as the informational resource, we have the great job of trying to keep up with everything that's going on and storing that data and providing that data. So energy.sc.gov is our website. It is a work in progress. Solar.sc.gov is another great website on all things solar. You get a lot of questions answered, consumer protection information, things that Stacey or Rick might talk about. And so those are just some great resources, or at least a jumping off point to other opportunities. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Rick to tell you about financing and other resources through the Energy Office.
Hi, yes, so my name is Rick Campana. I'm an energy specialist with the South Carolina Energy Office. My role is providing general technical assistance and working on some of our various funding programs and other programs that we offer. So I'm going to run through a few of those today. The first thing I wanted to talk about is our Energy Saver tool. This is something that we launched in August of 2020, and you can see the link there, energysaver.sc.gov. And essentially, this is just a lookup tool that anyone can use, whether you're for your home or your business or public entity, whatever the case may be. It's a lookup tool for looking up various incentives, grants and loans, things like that, that you can use towards energy efficiency, renewable energy, and transportation measures. It also allows you to print and export these results. And we also have some tips on there on how to save energy. And so when I say it has all these things, it has all of them. So it's going to have your utilities incentives. It's going to have what the Energy Office offers. It's going to have what's available from the state or federal, depending on what type of end user you are and other factors. So this is kind of a quick walkthrough on how it works. So in that first screen, you'll choose either for your home or for your business, whether you want residential or commercial related incentives and programs. After you do that, it'll ask for your utility provider. Now, this has a little search field. So say you're with Dominion, you'll start typing in Dominion. Now, fair warning, it can be a little slow, so just give it a moment to catch up, but it should pull the utility name up automatically. And then so you'll select that. Now, depending whether you select commercial or residential earlier, it'll either ask you to select your type of business, or if you think you may be eligible for low income programs. And then it'll spit out that list of results that I mentioned. And like I said, it's going to be fully comprehensive. It's going to have all the different programs that may be available to you. Now it's going to be fully comprehensive. You may be going in thinking, looking for a particular type of incentive or, say a certain energy efficiency or renewable energy measure, but it's going to have everything in there. So you'll have to dig in a little bit and look for what you want, but it's a fully comprehensive resource. So getting into some of the our funding programs, the first we have is our Concert Fund loan. So this is our main loan program for public entities and nonprofits. So the city of Columbia, Richland County, and other entities like that can take advantage of this program. And so it's geared for projects in the areas of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation. And we offer loans ranging from $25,000 up to $500,000. Now, if you have a larger project, we have gone beyond that $500,000 on a number of occasions. So long as funding is available, we can consider doing that. It has a 1.5% interest rate currently. That's something we review on an annual basis, but we've had it at 1.5 for as long as I've been with the Energy Office. And the loan terms are as long as 10 years. They're also capped though based on the payback period of the project. And the payments are then due on the loan are due quarterly after completion of the project for nonprofit entities or annually for public entities. And so there's more information there. Obviously, when you're taking government money, there's a lot of things that you have to do. Many different regulations we have to go by and things we have to check. But so I can't really summarize all that in a quick presentation. But if this is something you're interested in, I'm happy to talk to you about it more. And for an example project, unfortunately, I didn't have any recent local government projects that were the best ones to highlight, but I chose this school district project with Warren School District 56. This was a project that applied back in May of 2020, and they completed it a little over a year later in the summer of 2021. And this was a $524,000 loan, so we did go above our normal $500,000 limit. They did a comprehensive lighting retrofit project at 5 of their schools. It had pretty significant savings of over $77,000 per year and 660,000 kilowatt hours with a payback within 7 years. So this was a pretty cost-effective payback. And by using the loan, they were able to kind of outlay those funds over a longer period of time. And this is a rural school district, so this is a really helpful program for districts like that. And they, some things about this application, if you're looking to apply, things that really made this review easier for us is they gave us a really thorough application with a detailed scope. And, once we had approved the loan, they gave really thorough invoice documentation and things like that. And also provided all the necessary financial documentation that we need to make sure that, we can receive repayment on that loan. Another program we offer is our mini grant program. Now, this, unlike Concert Fund where you could apply at any time, this is an annual program, so it works on a cycle. So it is a competitive program. We have limited funding every year. The amount kind of varies depending on the applicant pool and what we think we can award for that year. The individual grants are up to $10,000. So it is a mini grant. And we're looking for high impact demonstration projects. Again, these are projects in the areas of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation. But this kind of allows us to award funding to projects that may not pass the technical review in Concert Fund, that may have a longer payback. Again, this has the same applicant pool as Concert Fund, so nonprofits and public entities. Now, as I mentioned, it's a cyclical program, so it opens in July of each year. So right now, it's not open for applications, but it will be, in a few months. So if this is something you're interested in, I would encourage you to start thinking about what projects you have, and so that you'll be ready when that application window opens. And so it's also very compressed time frame. Ultimately, these projects have to be completed before the end of our next fiscal year, which is at the end of June. So they have to be completed within that year. So we're looking for a lot of different things with these projects. There's various criteria that we score these on. But yeah, it's another good option in addition to the Concert Fund loan.
One misconception that we heard about the other day is that your project can be more than 10,000. It's just that's all the available for.
Yeah, so absolutely. And in fact, that's one of the things we look for in applications. If if you're contributing some other funding, or if you're also using other rebates or incentives to help make it a larger project, that's something that's a bonus in our book. And an example for municipal government we had was the city of Greenville. This project was completed in last year's batch of projects. And they did is approximately 31 kilowatt solar installation on a community center. And so some of the things that made this application successful, why we chose it for an award. Among the solar applications we received, it was one of the, had some of the best savings and fastest payback. It was also located in what they call special emphasis neighborhood, which is a neighborhood they've identified for redevelopment activities. And they gave us a really detailed plan on how they were going to incorporate this solar installation into learning activities that go on at the community center. They have a lot of after-school camping things that go on there. They also covered, some of the project costs. That's what really made this possible. It wasn't a $10,000 solar project. And when they applied, they had already fully fleshed out the scope, with the size of the solar installation, what panels and inverters they were going to install. All that information was already determined when they applied. Another program we have is our Technical Assistance Program, or TAP. So this is the program through which we offer energy assessments Again, this is the same eligibility pool as the programs I talked about, nonprofits and public entities. If you're familiar with ASHRAE levels of audits, it's kind of somewhere between a level 1 to a level 2. So it's a little straightforward. If you're looking for something more comprehensive, or if you have a larger campus or number of buildings that need to be audited, that may be something where you might want to look for an engineering firm to do that, as we are a small staff, we do these audits in-house. And right now we do have a significant queue of customers waiting to have audits done. So, but this is something we have available. The general process, we'll do a utility bill analysis. We'll do the actual walkthrough energy assessment, where we'll look at your existing equipment, and we'll summarize that in a report with recommended conservation measures you can take with approximate, payback times and things like that for those measures. We'll also provide funding advisement on any incentives and other things you can use to help pay for those measures. Again, more information is available at that link, and if you have any questions, I'm here to talk to you. Another thing related to our training, so we have an annual course that we offer, the Accredited Commercial Energy Manager course, or ACEM. We didn't have it on that slide because it hasn't been scheduled yet for this year. So we typically hold this in the fall, typically around October or November. And so this is a 4.5-day course. And it is coordinated by the Energy Office and the Association of South Carolina Energy Managers, or ACEM. So it's really geared towards energy managers working with public entities. And so it instructs anyone who takes the course on factors that affect your energy consumption, and also how to identify energy saving opportunities. And so some of the things we cover: building envelope, electrical, mechanical systems, lighting, energy economics, and among many other subjects. It is a bit math heavy. There's a lot of calculations that go on. But if you pass the final exam, you receive ACEM certification. And if you're familiar with CEM, the Commercial Energy Manager, Commercial Energy Manager course is from the Association of Energy Engineers. That's a more nationally recognized certification. And this is kind of, can be kind of a stepping stone if that's something you're interested in pursuing. It's much more rigorous. So this is kind of, a primer for that. And then a couple other things I want to talk about. These are kind of more general resources outside of the Energy Office. But the first is Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contracts, or GSPC. So if you're not familiar with this, this is essentially a form of project delivery for energy efficiency projects, where you have a partnership between the customer and an energy services company, or an ESCO. And so essentially how it works is the company will provide a comprehensive energy audit to identify energy saving opportunities. And what makes this so unique is that the cost savings from those measures have to be fully guaranteed to cover the cost of the project. And these contracts, they also typically include maintenance provisions and training for your staff, so that they can learn how to use the equipment that's installed. This is very, most commonly used with public entities, and we've seen it throughout South Carolina with state agencies, public colleges and universities, and even some school districts and local governments. Now, in South Carolina, the state agencies and public higher education, they have a very formalized process they have to follow. That's overseen by the Office of State Engineer. So if you're with one of those types of entities, they would be overseeing that. But with local governments and school districts, it's more dependent on your own procurement codes. So if you're interested in this, a great resource is the Energy Services Coalition. They're a national group that works with performance contracting, so they have a lot of resources available. And also, something I neglected to include here, another good resource is from DOE's Better Buildings program. They have a performance contracting toolkit as well, with a lot of great resources. Another resource I wanted to point towards is the North Carolina Clean Energy Defense Center. So they offer customized technical assessments and energy audits. And so a lot of these, they apply to local governments, and that includes solar assessments for schools and local government buildings, local government solar policy review, alternative fuel life cycle analysis, and many other things. Now, these services may not be free, but this is an option if you're looking for any more customized energy technical assistance. They're also the Southeast partner for the US DOE's Combined Heat and Power program. So if Combined Heat and Power is something you're interested in, they're another great resource for that. And they offer no cost qualifications screenings and advanced technical assistance for CHP. That is their website there. And I will pass things on to Stacey to talk about some other things municipal governments can look at.
Hello, everyone. Stacey Washington, South Carolina Energy Office, Energy Specialist, Senior Energy Specialist. So today I'm going to talk about some municipal examples, just looking at other municipalities and I have a county here too, just to see what they're doing for energy efficiency, what kind of policies they have in place. At their on the local government level, I always tell local governments, you have the power. You can make change within your own government. It's not just the state that you have to find out you can do things within your power. So the first place I'd like to talk about is Montgomery County, Maryland. So all of these places I'm going to talk about have some type of goal. And then they have some policies that goes along with that goal. So that the municipality has said we're going to do this, but we're also going to put some policies in to help us reach that. So for Montgomery County, Maryland, they had a 2017 resolution for greenhouse gas reduction 8% by 2027 and 100% by 2035 as compared to 2005 levels. So that gives you an example of where they're trying to go. For commercial buildings, they require benchmarking. So they want them to report their energy use to them by law. For public and private non-residential buildings greater than 500,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet. Using an Energy Star portfolio manager, so they even tell them what tools to use. Energy Star portfolio manager is a free tool that the EPA has available to any business, commercial, industrial, schools. They have it available on their website where you can enter your utility bills, and then it helps you manage your energy usage. And this is a good way to also report it to people if they want an easy, free way to do that. They also, for new buildings, built to 2018 International Energy Conservation Code, or IECC. They require that, and they have a green building property tax credit. So you can reduce their property taxes for new and existing buildings, and that's based on the leadership in energy. I think I have a typo in there. In energy and environmental design, and that's LEED. So they want, if you build to LEED, you get a green building property tax credit. And for residential, they do a lot of outreach and education. They have a disclosure requirement for wholesale for energy usage, and they have expedited reviews for and paperless permitting for solar. So they have a good bit of things that they're doing for their commercial and residential to help them meet this goal. In addition to that, for public buildings, as Rick mentioned, they are doing performance contracting, so that they have looked at the county and they have gotten a company to come in and help them reduce their energy use using that tool. They have landfill solar project, solar on their facilities, and they're doing a microgrid at critical facilities. So there's a lot of things that county is doing to help them meet that goal. So it was like I keep repeating, this is important when you have a policy to put a goal to put policy in place to help you reach that. I say a goal or a policy without funding is nothing. It's hard to meet it if you don't have something there to help push you to get there. So next I have the District of Columbia. They have a zero carbon by 2050 goal. They have a building energy performance standard of their own that's based on the Energy Star score. So all of the buildings in that city need to apply for Energy Star and get a score. And that helps them with meeting this standard. That's their standard. And the buildings are for buildings greater than 25,000 square feet. They also have a green construction code, and that's for projects greater than 10,000 square feet. And several of the green building certifications qualify. So like LEED, Green Globes, I believe, was in their enterprise green communities, and Energy Star. So all those can help you qualify for that green construction code. Then I just wanted to put somewhere closer to home. So you're thinking, well, it's DC and that's Maryland, that's great. For Raleigh, North Carolina, they have an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2007, from 2007 based on 2050 goal. And some of the things they're doing is they require new municipal buildings over 10,000 square feet. to be LEED Silver certified. They are prioritizing energy efficiency improvements in their buildings, public buildings. And they have for projects less than 10,000 square feet to design to LEED, but they don't have to be LEED certified because that costs extra money. So they just need to be designed to that. So what can you do? What are some things Columbia can do? I mean, those are some things you can do, but I just wanted to highlight a couple areas here. Building codes. So the International Energy Conservation Code for South Carolina, we are on 2009. The national one is 2021. International. It's on 2021. We're a little bit behind. And I want to mention that all the other codes are 2018 for the city of Columbia. And the International Energy Conservation Code is at 2009. So for the state as a whole, legislation has to be changed.
That's what's being required for new construction, is that for what's the name?
Yeah. So legislation will have to be passed for that to change for the state. But municipalities, this is a home rule state, you can make it as stringent as you want. So that's a way to do that, is going through the code and making sure that in your local area, what you can control. So like, you can't control the state necessarily, but you have some control in your municipality or local government. That's one way to do it, is updating the code. So I don't think people really know that a lot of other municipalities in the state, I think they probably do have a newer code, but we're on 2009 still. Then, which, I mean, you don't realize that until you see it. So I just want to encourage that, I don't know who does it, but that's something you can do.
And it references Asher 2007.
And, okay,
Even older.
okay, even older. So we have a ways to go. That's our conference. But so we can control only what we can control. So we are, and in the energy office we have had in our energy plan, we have every year, every time we go through it, it says update the code, and we have discussions on the state level about that. And reach roadblocks. Yes,
What year was the city of Columbia on again?
2009.
Just the other day.
So, we have had discussion on the state level and have hit roadblocks or say ceilings, but.
What are those roadblocks and ceilings? What are you?
I mean,
hear about?
we talk about it, but there's a, it has to go through legislation, so there's homeowners association throughout the state that are happy with where we are, so.
There are a lot of.
They're happy with what it is right now.
Well, they can say we're building to code, or above code.
Yeah, they can sell something as energy efficient and being above code that if we were on the current code, may not be energy efficient, so. There's also a perception, I think, that increasing or raising the code will increase costs. And we've seen data that suggests that may not be true, but we can't lobby for legislation, so.
Oh, right, yeah.
We promote it. We make that, giving you information. Another thing you can do is benchmarking. So a lot of the local governments you saw earlier require their buildings to build to a certain standard or to report their data. So you can't manage what you don't measure. So measure it so you can know where you are to know where you need to go. So there's a lot of different standards out there that you can use. I mentioned the Department of Energy. Well, I mentioned the EPA Energy Star, but the Department of Energy also has a building energy performance standard. That's a program that they offer that anybody can take up and use for their buildings. Energy Star, I mentioned Portfolio Manager. They have standards and things you can use, and of course the leadership in energy and environmental design. So that's only a few. There's a lot of different certifications out there that can be used for buildings. And then on the residential side, the Department of Energy has a home energy score. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in on the next slide. And then EPA has Energy Star, of course, they have Energy Star homes. We even have in South Carolina for manufactured housing tax credit. If you buy an Energy Star manufactured, you get a $750 tax credit, and you don't have to pay taxes on when you purchase it. So we do encourage that in the state for manufactured housing. And there's also a HERS rating, home energy rating system, that is for new homes. So home energy scores for existing homes, and the HERS rating is for new homes. And we have a lot of homes that have HERS ratings in the state. So they are building energy efficient homes, or rating them, I should say, in South Carolina, and the builders are saying they're building about good.
So are they rating those on a national, so when they get that rating, are they getting that rating because that it's the South Carolina, or are they getting that rating because it's a national rating?
This is a national rating system, and there's
So they are being
I'll show
fielded
you,
on
yeah.
an
So
official level.
on the top there, that's the HERS rating,
Mhm.
HERS index, so it just puts it on that scale. It doesn't necessarily mean it's efficient. Usually the ones that they rate are in the efficient category, but that's a scale. So, you know, if you're a home and you're up in the red, then you know you have some work to do. If you're in the green, then you're doing okay. They do have an existing portion on there, but a lot of the homes that are HERS rated in South Carolina are new homes. And so I'll go ahead and talk about home energy labeling. So we have an effort in South Carolina to get a home energy labeling established, but not like a legislation or anything, but we had in our energy efficiency roadmap, which Sara will talk about in a little bit, last year before last, we did a process where we looked at energy efficiency recommendations. And one of them that came out of the energy equity energy burning group was for home energy labeling, purely for educational purposes, not to necessarily have anybody do anything, which would be better if somebody did do something as a result. But it's more that, you know, when you go to purchase a home, you want to know what, you know, the energy use would be like when you get in there. So we looked at home energy score. It's at the bottom of the page. There's a scale of 1 to 10, and you would know on that level, you know, from 1 to 10 where you were. If you purchased a home, if it's a 3, you know, you might have some work to do. The 7, not really too bad.
And then we'll give you the potential improvement that you can do to.
Right, yeah, so that's the thing, when we develop a label in South Carolina, we can decide what we'll put on it. So some of the things you can put on it are things you can do to improve your home. So there's a lot of things you can do with a label. Education is one. You can also put improvement in there, like, you know, if your utility has programs that you can use, we can point you to that. You know, different tips and things you can do to improve the energy use, that could all be on there. So that was the recommendation, to have it for educational purposes. In the end, I say maybe in when I'm an old lady, I'll be in a rocking chair, we're all up there, I just get it. In the end, we would love for it to be on the MLS, so that when you pull up, you know, when you purchase a home, that's one of the things that you see. Like if you go on Zillow, it'll tell you the home energy score.
So you're knowing not only kind of, you know, that gives you an estimated mortgage amount that you would pay on the house, but it also give you kind of an estimated energy burden or electric bill, which would be nice to know.
What about rental properties?
Yes, so that's another thing we talked about, so City of Columbia is interested in piloting with us on this. And so the model that we have is for the state to have a label and then a municipality to require it in their local area. And we did talk to the City of Columbia, and yes, we definitely need to make sure that this is applicable to rental properties. So yes, that's been discussed, and we would like to make sure that is part of it. And we even talked to Oregon. They have a program. I mean, a lot of northeastern states have this as required. A lot of places, and they have one at the University of Oregon where they're doing they train the students, and it started off as a program that the students wanted to do to look at their places where they live because they rent, and they knew they weren't energy efficient and they wanted to help. And so they got into this and got trained so they could do the audits. So yes, rental properties is one of the key properties we want to look at. So we had a lot of discussions last year. We talked to different states like Oregon and Vermont and a lot of more Connecticut. A lot of these places have mandates. Some of them are voluntary. Their legislature said we need to put in a home energy program. Some of them have funding, some of them don't. We have a recommendation. And we would really like to pursue that recommendation. It's a great program to do. And we have talked many discussions throughout the year. So and through those discussions, we have come to the conclusion that, okay, we need to develop a label for South Carolina so that somebody can start labeling homes. So also we have Coastal Carolina University that's interested in training students to do the home energy audits. And there's a separate training you need for home energy score. So they're working to get these students to be Building Performance Institute certified and then get the home energy score certification. So a lot of work has happened in the last year for home energy labeling, and now we're ready. Now we're thinking, okay, now we know what to do. We have had a lot of education, learned a lot in the last year, had a lot of discussions. The city of Columbia was in a lot of those discussions and helped us kind of work through what kind of questions to ask and how it'll look in a municipality. So we are now ready to take the step of figuring out a label and would like to have a working group to do that. So if anybody's interested, we'll be reaching out. And I just want to put a few resources up on the, for you guys. Basically, this is the Northeastern Energy Efficiency Partnership. They have a lot of resources for municipalities on being green, building the decarbonization and public policy framework. So, you know, as you're reducing your carbon, they have a policy framework that might be helpful. They have a toolkit for benchmarking. I talked about benchmarking earlier, using the Energy Star, using the Building Energy Performance Standard from DOE. If you like to do some of that, the toolkit is good for that benchmarking. And then green zoning. So looking at, you know, changing zoning. Yeah, I can talk about that specifically, but there's a green zoning whole effort. And they have a tool on their website that can help you look at, okay, can we change some zoning to help reduce energy use in the municipality. And I'll pass it back to Sara.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much, Rick and Stacey. And before we move forward, I have an administrative announcement for those that are joining us on Zoom. We are not able to access the chat during the presentation, but please have your questions added and we will get to the chat as soon as we're done with the presentation. That being said, I want to share with you another, we've talked about the resources that South Carolina State Energy Office has and provides. We've talked about a lot of efforts that others are making and that we're tracking to see if that's something that would work in South Carolina. And I want to give you a little insight now into energy efficiency in South Carolina and what we're doing. Stacey mentioned that she's mentioned the EE roadmap and the state energy plan. She's also mentioned that we don't have specific goals or targets in South Carolina. You'll hear sometimes different states or, and obviously they can be set by other municipalities. And we don't operate from a top down in that respect. But what we do have the benefit of in South Carolina that's great is the stakeholders and the stakeholder process. And that is something that we have really benefited from because it's gathering together diverse groups, folks that may have disagreements, but they need to talk and bring them together. And that's how we have been working through the State Energy Office with our state energy plan. So back in 2016, a huge stakeholder process was convened, and we had our energy and action plan, and it funneled up. There were over 40 recommendations that came out of the working groups, that they were funneled or distilled down into about 8 top tier. And then out of those came various reports, various workshops, trainings, and tools that were the result of those recommendations. Following that, in 2019, we had the Energy Efficiency Roadmap. And that one was obviously 2019, so virtual. And it was our first virtual stakeholder process, but we still had over 70 energy efficiency stakeholders. And what we did to start that was look back at anything that was energy efficiency recommendation from the state energy plan and use that as a starting point for moving forward. So it's an evolving process, it's a living document. It can be updated and improved as times change, as technologies change, and as interests change. And so out of the EE roadmap came 20 energy efficiency recommendations, and a final report was issued in January of 2021, and that's available on our website. Now, of those 20 recommendations, you saw we're a small staff, so we've prioritized and triaged them. There's some of them, as we've mentioned before, that can't be accomplished absent legislation. And so there's some of them that the Energy Office can't be responsible for. There's some of them that might be able to go faster if someone championed it outside of the Energy Office. The Energy Office is always happy to partner. But there are several of them that we are working on and initiatives that we're taking strides on. One is the home energy labeling Another one is a one-stop shop, especially for low-income residents. How many of you have had to sit on the phone trying to get a customer service representative on something, with Verizon, whatever, and you get to the end of an hour, and not necessarily Verizon, but, and it's not, you're not talking to the person you need to talk to. And not everyone has the blessed benefit or resource of a free hour. You work in multiple jobs, and you've got kids you're taking care of, and you're trying to just figure out how to save money and where are these things available. You don't have the time. I don't have the time to go through and find those things. So we want to provide it as a one-stop shop, and we've sort of got that with the Energy Saver program that's available to you. But like Rick said, then you have to kind of comb through a lot of it, and still some of those things may not be applicable. So the hope is to be able to have a program where you can go in similar to Energy Saver, but more fine-tuned, and really be able to know before you spend that hour towards this, is that even something you're eligible for? And just really help. Another effort that we've been working on, and we've got a market study that should be coming out hopefully by the end of the summer, is the potential for a green bank in South Carolina. And what that would do is have funding opportunities for energy efficiency, renewable energy projects that maybe can't get traditional financing, or maybe not qualify under one of our loans. Maybe the payback is too long, or whatever it may be that kicks it out. And so whether or not that could happen, there's talk of a national green bank. There's green banks that have been established in other areas, not in South Carolina that I know of, but in other states. And so the first place to start is always to get that, like you said, benchmark. And so the market study is being done in coordination with USC and I'm going to mess it up, CISA. So we've got some great work to be done on that. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully that will be a jumping point to be able to move us closer to that. Well, we can't stop with our stakeholders. We have to have more stakeholder involvement, because we're mighty, we're small but mighty, but we like to make sure that the voices are heard. And what was heard is that there was a lot of interest in electric vehicles and studying what that would look like in the state. So throughout 2001, we conducted our electric vehicle stakeholder process. This was a very involved, over 100 stakeholders. We had an advisory group that was small and focused, with then 5 more specific working groups, really drilling down and coming up with different recommendations. Lo and behold, in the midst of that, we have Act 46 passed by the legislature last year. Act 46 did several things, but one of the things it did is it said, ORS finished that stakeholder process that you're already doing. But then instead of just writing these great recommendations that someone may or may not read, we are going to give you a forum for this. And so the legislature is creating the joint committee for the electrification of transportation. Got a nice ring to it. And they are going to do several things. They're going to get our recommendations and review those. Then Act 46 requires the Public Service Commission to open a docket to look at how electric vehicles and that proliferation and that change is going to impact the grid and price and need, all the different factors involved with electric vehicles coming on the scene. And then also they'll be getting information from the Department of Revenue. And so then that committee will push and look at all of those information and then make recommendations to the General Assembly for legislation. So we have a real venue for those recommendations, and we had just a very broad, collaborative, very good, diverse stakeholder process. Was anybody in here a part of the ED stakeholder? If you missed out, we'll have another one. And then the last thing I wanted to hit on really is the upcoming federal funding. So back in November of 2021, the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act was signed. That authorized a historic amount of money to be pushed out through various programs. And so I'm going to highlight some of those. One particular one is coming, there's several of them that are coming through the State Energy Office. But one of them that might be of interest to this group is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. We cannot have enough alphabet soup. So the EECBG will help you with improved energy efficiency, lower energy usage, and reduce fossil fuel emissions. And it's targeted towards as a resource to cities and towns. It was originally established under the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. So it's a federal law. It's already on the books, kind of the structure for this. So it's already got a head start of some of the new programs that have come through the Infrastructure Act. However, it hasn't had a tranche of funding like this in a while. They are going to $550 million for 1 year. Now that's nationwide. That's not specific, to the State Energy Office here, thank God. But it'll be distributed according to a formula. The formula is found 42 USC section 17-152. I highlighted the top because obviously we're here talking a lot about municipalities, but 68% of that 550 million is available to towns and cities. 68%. The formula specific for how that's going to be decided has yet to be released. But part of things that we'll consider are population, as well as daytime population. You've got the difference of folks that are commuting, square footage of commercial, office, and industrial space. So that's 68% of that 550. 28% gets to come through our office, and we will be administering similar to our concert fund loan and other programs. And you'll see who qualifies for what in just a minute. And then 2% for Indian tribes, and then 2% for competitive grants. And again, we haven't gotten additional information on that beyond what was out there to begin with. When is it available? To be announced. But it has already been authorized and approved, so that's the good thing. It's there. It just hasn't. Can't reach it yet. So who's eligible? And automatically, the 10 largest cities in the state, each state, are eligible for it. Cities and towns and counties with at least 35,000 in population. If you're under that number, that's where you come to the State Energy Office, and we will work with the smaller municipalities for those grants. And there's so much that you can do under this. You can do lighting retrofits or audits, financing zero emission transportation, and that includes the infrastructure that's required to go with it. Obviously, you have a propane or a electric vehicle, you don't have the way to fuel it, doesn't do you much good. But even, replacing traffic signals, and then government buildings that want to install renewable energy technology that generates electricity from renewables. And so they, are always looking for that. And this is only a snapshot of the different items that are available. And it's all laid out in the Act. Another one is for cities and towns to establish their own incentive programs for energy efficiency improvements. And I think that's kind of bringing us to the end. So what are we doing? We're preparing for this future funding because the EECBG is only one aspect of it. We're continuing to implement our recommendations for the energy plan and the energy efficiency roadmap, and then getting ready for our EV stakeholder report. Again, that will come out this summer to the legislature. We provide support for alternative fuels options. We say in the Energy Office that we are fuel agnostic. There is a lot of emphasis and attention to electric vehicles, but anything that's cleaner, we're for. And so that's why you see we have that propane training event and different things. And exploring economic development opportunities. This is just an exciting time to be in the energy sector. And the fact that energy efficiency or environmental issues are part of the economic development dialogue now. It's no longer it would be nice, or we can say we'll put a recycling can in our office building. These are things that are being required by industries. And I love that example from the Oregon students with their rental properties. This we'll just get trained and we'll do it and we'll establish it. And so, that's what we benefit from in South Carolina, is people that will take charge and will take ownership. And so we are ready to partner with y'all as we can. Like we said, we can't advocate. We're not a lobbying arm. One of the benefits, and I meant to say this earlier, of being within the Office of Regulatory Staff as a state energy office, because state energy offices are in different places in every state. Some of them have it in their environmental agency. Some of them have it as a cabinet agency. Some are more aligned with like a nonprofit. Ours is housed within the Office of Regulatory Staff, and that really helps us with our legislative mandate, because our mandate is to maximize energy efficiency and environmental conservation while minimizing rates. And so having that perspective of the ORS helps us balance, when utilities come in with ideas for renewable portfolios and things. Of course, that's wonderful. Of course, we're promoting energy efficiency, but innovation can be costly and we have to be wise. And we don't want to, we have to think about everybody. Not everybody can afford that, And so equity and resiliency are just something that washes over every consideration that we look into. And so with that, thank y'all. And we're here to answer questions. So I'd love a dialogue if y'all have any more questions. I think we've got some more time. Yeah, would have been a lot more. Yep. Just in case you needed that again.
And that middle course is really designed for anyone who's interested in solar, electric vehicles, and storage. The first day will be a 101 day, so if you just want to know the basics, you can sign up for that, and it's $15 for just that day. So the whole course is $50. So you'll learn about policy, rates, procurement, storage, you'll go through all the different parts there. And then we did really try to make it for municipalities too. There'll be APA credits available specifically. So if you're in planning and would like to get some planning credits, we would like to make sure that you can get those there and draw that audience so they can learn about how to implement that at the local level.
And it's $15 for each individual day, but wait, there's more. You can bundle and get them all for $50.
And we will be recording it, so if you can't attend the 4th, 5th, 11th, and 12th, what we're looking at maybe having on demand. You still have to pay, but having on demand access after that. So I already had a teacher say I can't attend and I'd like to attend at least one day, and I told her that we try to do that for her. Not just for her, but have that available.
Want to check. This would be time if you are joining us online, like to those with us. If you have any questions, we want to also make sure you're included, so you can just put those in the chat. But what do y'all have any questions or thoughts or suggestions? Yes.
Right, the tax rebates and the tax incentives and the rebates for landlords. Could you talk about that?
We don't have any specific energy efficiency incentives for landlords, but there are states that have those, and that's part of the zoning, green zoning. And some of those, like nothing is Vermont that has a green zoning that they just did for rental properties. Where they encourage, I think now it's where you have to make improvements when you sell the property, but a lot of people don't sell the property, so the improvements are made. And in that jurisdiction, they have inspections that are done every 3 years. And as part of those inspections, they've added energy to it. So that's something you can do in zoning, is to put energy into those ordinances. But you know, in South Carolina, I'm aware of having energy incentives for landlords.
So there's absolutely nothing to offer landlords?
Well. we
I mean, there
have-
may be from utilities, like
Oh, utility, yeah.
Dominion, they have a multifamily program, for example. But yeah, from the state itself, I don't.
Hi, I'm just curious if you could speak to the accessibility of financial assistance from the SC Energy Office for sustainable infrastructure projects for low income communities. I'm curious, because I know it's easier for people or for larger communities with internet access to gain assistance, but I'm curious how if there's like third-party efforts involved in order to connect people to the SC Energy Office from smaller communities.
Yeah, we probably have some different ways we can answer that. I mean, as far as our like loan and grant programs, which are available to public entities and nonprofits, we try and make sure everyone in South Carolina knows that they're available. So well, obviously with COVID, some things slowed down for us, but we tend to do a lot of in-person conferences and speaking events and STEM events and all sorts of things all over the state. And we bring flyers and information on these programs everywhere we go. So we try to make sure that people in more rural areas and everywhere across South Carolina are aware of our programs. And in fact, we've had a lot of more rural interests in Concert Fund and mini grants in recent years. You know, it is difficult though, because they often don't have the resources to manage those projects from their side. And so we try and do what we can, but you know, we have had some difficulties with some of those projects just because they can't like stay on top of their vendors and things as much as, you know, someone, you know, with more resources and more staff might be able to do.
And we have to require that, you know, documentation, especially when you're talking about federal funds. You know, there is a lot of accountability and oversight both with the state and the feds on, is that money being spent the way it needs to be spent?
And I'll add to, as far as working with residents, since our programs are for public entities and nonprofits, a way to do that is to, if a nonprofit applied for one of the loans and then they were able to do projects at a residential level. So if like for Sustaining Way in the state before, if they applied for a grant and we're gonna do projects, you know, that'll be a way to get the money to residential, but we don't have the capacity to offer financial programs to residential. But through the Green Bank, we're looking at, you know, a lot of the, during the market assessment, a lot of the people that we talked to said we need residential programs in South Carolina, and that it sounds like there may be some money there. And it wouldn't be through the energy office necessarily in the Green Bank, but maybe there'll be entities and there'll be a financial program for residents out of that Green Bank.
Okay, so like access, like gaining view or like viewership from nonprofits in order to kind of get some assistance is something that lower income communities can do along with like pushing for like the construction of a green bank in South Carolina. Is that correct?
I mean, if that's a means to getting, you know, some money to those communities, you know, we haven't decided what's gonna look like, you know, or any kind of, we don't have any money for the Green Bank. We're just doing the assessment right now, but a lot of people talk to them and said, we need some residential programs.
Thank you very much.
And there is some funding, in a second, there is also another stream of funding for a capitalization grant and revolving loan fund from the Infrastructure Act, and some of that will be coming through and formula pushed out to the states. And what formula means is you just set your percentage and your take of that national big number. And the way it's written in the Infrastructure Act, there will be a residential component to those as well. I didn't put any slides on it. Like with the EDCDG, there's actually law already written and in place that puts all the parameters on that, or most of the parameters, although we're still waiting on additional direction from the feds. But with this new, it's a new revolving loan program that they're providing, but it's for audits and energy upgrades and even for a final audit afterwards. And it's really targeted more towards smaller businesses and some residential, as well as like multi-unit homes and, or dwellings. And so what that's gonna look like, we don't know yet. When that's gonna be funded, we don't know yet. It's for fiscal year 2022, and so is EECBG, but we don't have it yet. So, but it's better for you now.
Thank you very much.
And the funding that comes to the city of Columbia, the CBG, because the city could formulate a program for residents, if that's what, so it's, I would encourage municipalities, if you know you're getting direct ECBG funding, go ahead and figure out where you're gonna get the money, be ready, because it's coming. This is a great example of what you can do, whether you can work on the municipal meters, you can work on residential, you can do, I don't know how much is coming, but it's good to be thinking about projects.
Yeah.
Is there anything at the state level, any infrastructure yet to encourage larger corporations who do work in the state to be more energy efficient or adopt more green energy generation? Anything specific in the pipe works, or is it more kind of a tax incentive?
We definitely have the tax incentives. Like we mentioned, we don't have specific mandates in South Carolina from our government. What we do have though, and what we're seeing, and even our Commerce Department, I was at a big meeting this week with Commerce, and they were talking about the UN's SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and that those are becoming the vernacular for industry. And if you go to like a BMW's webpage, they're going to have those same icons, and that's what they're talking in now, is those terms. And number 7 is energy. But that's becoming the vernacular for economic development. And there's an organization we work with a lot of times, and Ethel is speaking tomorrow, I believe, from Sustain SC. And their mission is sustainability through economic development. And so what we're seeing is there's this push, almost an organic intrinsic push, because, let's say a big supplier or industry partner has these goals. Well, the goals don't just stop there. They spread to their supply chain or their value chain, both up and down. And so now they're saying, not only are we going to have goals, but we're going to let you know that every component and part that we got from Joe Schmo and them and X and Y, they are also holding these sustainability goals, and they're making efforts to be more efficient. The SEC just proposed rules that actually, and this is the SEC, not the sports part, the Securities and Exchange Commission is going to be requiring corporations to put their money where their mouth is. There's no longer is it going to be, you can just make a pretty page on your website or a pretty commercial and say we're energy efficient. The SEC is now going to say, show us where you spent the money to do that. Show us that that you're making capital investments towards efficiency and sustainability. If you're going to claim it, you better show us how you're doing it. And so it's working in all directions. And it's, like I said, it's just an exciting time. We're going to see a lot of changes. And there are just goals that they are setting, whether they're in line with the UN's goals or their own, people going ahead. It's no longer just it would be nice if you would do this. Corporations are really saying, we won't work with you. We won't buy from you. And their customers are saying, we won't buy from you. And that is making the difference.
I also want to mention, I didn't include a slide on it for this audience, but we do have, it's effectively the private sector sister program, the Concert Fund. It's called EARL, E-E-R-L, it's Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan. It's offered by a group called the South Carolina Business Development Corporation, but we provide the funding through that, and we do the technical analysis on their behalf. But it's very similar to Concert Fund and how it's structured, and that's something that private businesses can pursue.
Would you mind repeating that?
Sure, it's EARL, E-E-R-L, Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan.
Thank you.
I have a question. With the federal funding, is it all purely project based, or would that be something that would be available for an organization like What's in Business?
I believe this is a massive act. I believe there are programs in there that are available. I know there was one that we looked at that Habitat would have been like a good fit for that. So I know there are programs that are available through that. Most of the ones that we're familiar with that are the ones that are going through DOE. And obviously we've got our focus on the ones that we're going to be responsible for, but there are some that are available. Just give it a good Google search. Sorry.
And there's the White House guidebook,
Yeah.
has every program listed, every program has a page. And so if you're interested, you can go on there, and then there's a spreadsheet on one of the websites for the White House guidebook, not the actual guidebook, so there's like a homepage for the guidebook, and you have a CSV file, that's a spreadsheet. And it has all the programs in a spreadsheet where you can just, search. And at the very end, it tells you the time you want it. So if you're interested in, okay, I want to see this program and when is it gonna happen? And then it goes, says quarter, it just about quarter, fourth quarter 22 or 23, whatever. That's another good resource.
That's a great place to start. Thank you. So this is the one, this is out of the White House guidebook for AECDG. And so it's got, the name of it. As an attorney, I appreciate you have the citation. They don't have that side written. But it has what agency, federal agency it's coming through, what the funding amount is, when it's gonna be available, and then it has recipients, like who would be the eligible recipients for that. And obviously, if your entity doesn't fall within that, you just turn to the next page. And if you have the electronic copy, you just do a word search.
Yeah, it works.
And then it has a description of the eligible uses, and then they have the next milestone. So this says the first funding opportunity is expected under ECBG for release in the fall of 2022. Whether or not we see that, they've got a lot going on.
So since those monies are coming down in the form of a block grant, will the state decide how that money is utilized and distributed, and there'll be requests made? Or is it that you have to make that request to ECBG or whatever?
So, and I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question, but of the 550 million, the 68% that's going to cities and towns, they will get that directly from DOE.
They'll get that directly, and then somebody like Habitat for Humanity would have to request it from the city, or request that there's a mandate, or that there's a something written, policy written, and then that money would be transitioned out to that.
As part of your application, you typically have to lay out how you'll do that and administer that program in order to qualify for those fundings. Just like we said, reporting. And the same will be true for ours, will be for the smaller ones. We've been talking with a lot of different states. There are national organizations with the other state energy offices, and seeing a lot of where other people have done revolving loans. Obviously, we have already have some operating, but there's some great suggestions that allow the applicant to really set the scope, and not be constrained by the five of us. We've seen a lot, and we have a lot of ideas, but we're not going to limit it to that. If it works, it will work. Yes. And I'm sorry, hang on just 1 minute. What was it?
I was just gonna say, I think the White House document they're referring to is some light reading, it's only about 500 pages.
That's for word search.
Those are
Search
such
for
like
word.
word impression documents.
There you go.
Has the lack of state-specific goals made it more challenging to encourage municipalities to take up your recommendations since they're not mandated?
I think you could look at it both ways. I'm trained to argue both sides. At this very law school, but not in this beautiful building. Prior to that. But what we have seen in some states that do have those legislative or government mandates is that they've come out with this great, whether it be an executive order or whatever, that this is our goal, that's what we're gonna hit. And nobody knows how to do it. Like Stacey said, the policy and the programs are not in place to do it. And so we're talking with our peers that can be actually a detriment sometimes, because, how do we make it happen? And we've got to make this happen. And it's more of like a bully stick. And so I think both ways work. Whether or not one's stronger than the other, I mean, it doesn't always hurt. It's good to have goals. You know where you're working towards. But I think there's also a possibility of where you can set something and folks can choose to go beyond that. And so, you'll be surprised at what humans can do, both good and bad. And so when the industries and the powerful interests in the state, I think one example, I've worked in coastal programs for a long time. And offshore drilling, if you're familiar, requires offshore leasing. And the state, at first, I believe, did not push back on that, but the local communities did. And the first idea was, that's sweet, the federal government probably won't listen to you because they're asking the state. They want to know what the governor says. They don't want to know what policy says. They don't want to know this. And the movement that came together and the strength of that movement from those municipalities made a difference. And it made a difference all the way to the federal government. And there's a moratorium. And that's only a part of why there's a moratorium, but it was a pretty impressive movement. So you have power.
Yes, kind of from that vein a little bit, I know another one of these panels was chatting with Dominion, I'm sure that would have had a lot of cross points there. And speaking of the power of people, and also understanding what kind of resources are even out there yet to be had. Thinking about our pledge here just in the city of Columbia, 2036, and that's approaching very quickly, and in the grand scheme of things and how difficult it truly is to integrate, alternative energy sources in a realistic way that don't crunch consumers. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts there. So, for little me or, just anybody living, in the state, since you all work within the state, I mean, what are just some pieces of advice, that, because you all kind of are looking at it from an eagle eye perspective, what are some things that citizens in the state should do and could really truly do to make things happen? I mean, besides, obviously you've got grant, initiatives, but I mean, just on a local level, or I don't know.
Change 3 light
Anything
bulbs.
What's that?
Change 3 old light bulbs over to LED. That would be a good first step. And I think that's one of the things that I hear. So I'm a field worker for Dominion Energy's incentive programs. I work for a company called ICF. And so I do hear that people are daunted by this task and where do we start and how do we audit our building? And so we do have small business incentives that are available. Dominion does have their own residential programs, and those residential programs that they sometimes will come to the house. They were doing those virtually because of COVID. And we are looking to help small businesses and, incentivize those in large part up to 90%, up to $6,000. But the first place to start is always going to be your lighting. How many times did you hear your grandpa say, cut the lights off? And then we kind of grew up in this generation that didn't, and it's a win-win situation. So one of the things that's hard to do is to kind of put the rubber to the road for what is the return on investment? And in this particular state, when I'm out and I'm talking to, somebody who has a building that was built in 1974, a lot of times that building owner's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to upgrade my building. My building's worth this much and it doesn't make sense. But sometimes it does make sense, and it's a win-win situation. You can see the calculations on those applications that tell you this is what your reduction in energy use and the energy bill equals money, and then here's an incentive. So this is how long it's going to take you probably, and to pay back. And so that's kind of where we're headed, and that's where the world's kind of headed. And we do see that locally and in our industrial sector. So Boeing, BMW, even, the farmers are looking, because if you want to trade with McDonald's, you want to trade with Publix, you need to go ahead and make sure that you're concerned about sustainability as well. We're seeing that locally, so definitely movement, but lots of help out there. And if you are thinking in dollars, you always need to be thinking about, I give away double McGum. So, it's a win-win situation. So you're thinking about the money that you save and the incentive you can get to kind of equalize.
Great, thank you for that. I mean, I think it's the old adage of, think globally and act locally. And it really does start with you. It starts with, with me at my home and with you at your home, like you said, change 3 light bulbs. And,
3 you use the most.
Yeah. I mean, we're all gonna have to work on our habits and,
Yeah.
and it's gonna take everybody. It's not gonna be just the government or just the cities. I mean, we're getting ready to see a lot of changes. Think about the changes you've seen in cell phones. From the fact that you didn't have one or it was a bad phone maybe, to now you're walking around with a mini computer, and probably almost everyone in here, if not everyone in here, has that. And it hasn't been that long. And, we're about to see a revolution like that and evolution like that in the energy world with energy efficiency and transportation. And so it's going to take everybody. It's going to take the utilities. It's going to take the governments, but it's also it's going to take us. Yeah, and I think we are at our time, so we will release you to thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
And please follow